What's up, YouTube? The Mike on Bike here. We are going to go over winterizing your bike today. As many of you know, I live in Chicagoland, so sadly we don't have year-round riding unless you're, you know, a little crazy or willing to risk, you know, unsafe roads, which I am not. But I'm out here on my 2021 Kawasaki Vulcan S. That said, these winterizing tips should be good for darn near any motorcycle, maybe just with a few differences, like obviously you're going to have a different type of oil filter than I am. Important to get the right oil filter. But the reason I am hopping on first is we are going to get this engine up to temperature a little bit. If you haven't done an oil change before, then you probably don't know that it's a little difficult to get all the oil out if the oil is cold. So we are just warming up our oil. I'm going to ride around for maybe 5 minutes or so. Then I'm going to top off my gas tank. And then we're going to head back and kind of get into the meat of winterizing a bike. Now, what do I do to winterize? A few things. I like to, first, I'll put stable, which is a fuel stabilizer, in my gas tank. You do this just so that your gas doesn't go bad over the winter, doesn't harm any of the internal components of the motorcycle while it's sitting. Really important step. Then I obviously change my oil. I already touched on that. And then a few other things, definitely optional, but I really like to clean my chain, clean and lube my chain. Obviously, you know, lubing your chain isn't the most important thing if you're not about to be riding it, but the benefit to doing it is that then when summer hits, I just have to take this thing down off my stand and it's ready to go. I don't have to worry, you know, when I'm excited to go out and ride, I don't have to worry about, well, you know, now I gotta stop and lube my chain. I'm just good to go. So that's definitely one of my hot tips. When you're excited to ride, you just want to be able to throw a leg over and go. Other stuff I do put it up on a rear stand. For the Kawasaki Vulcan specifically, I don't really like the front stand. The front forks just, I don't know, they just don't like to sit in the stand in a way that gives me a ton of confidence. So what I do as an alternative is I park the front tire on, you can use either a piece of plywood, or my preferred method is like a thicker piece of foam. And the reason you do this is so that you don't get a flat spot. The plywood compresses just enough under the, you know, weight of the bike that it should take the absorption instead of your tire deforming. But I prefer that thicker piece of foam just because it gives it even that much more cushion. You just don't want something that's gonna, you know, compress completely flat the second you put it on. You want something that's like a little sturdier foam. I'm fortunate enough that I work at a fitness facility, so I get all kinds of free yoga mats and pieces of foam and just random stuff. You know, as the gym doesn't need it anymore, they upgrade and get new product. I get to kind of take what I want, which is another hot tip. If you do know someone that works at a gym, or if you do yoga, or if your wife does yoga or whatever, try to get your hands on an old yoga mat that nobody wants anymore, because it is so much nicer to change your oil or to lube your chain or whatever over a surface like that that can just be rolled up and put away, rather than you know, potentially trying to clean it off your garage floor. That's kind of my hot tip. But we're just going to pull up to this mobile station on the corner here, top off the fuel, which feels silly. It's going to be like $1 because I have pretty much a full tank. But you do want to leave a full tank when you're winterizing your bike. You want to leave it completely full. So I'm gonna do a quick cutaway. Well, that cost a whopping $5.03. It was actually a little thirstier than I anticipated, but I kind of find it hard to believe that I just put 1.1 gallons of premium in there when it was only showing that it was 1 bar from full. I don't know, maybe this gas station's rigged or something, but that was not a $5 fill up. My whole tank's usually around 11 bucks, so that's a little hard to believe. Hopefully you guys are having a good fall so far. I know I am. My birthday's coming up. That always feels good. Don't forget, don't feel old. Old is perspective. It's a privilege to get older every year. So don't forget that. Anytime I'm feeling down about my age, or even, you know, we all get down about ourselves. If you're feeling down about, you know, your body weight or anything really, it's perspective, and it's a privilege. You know, I'm a little round around the middle, and if I'm feeling bad about that, I just remind myself that the majority of the world, you know, a lot of people can't afford to get a little extra round around the middle. They would kill to. But anyway, that's me off my soapbox. Today's going to be a little more laid back for the rest of the video.
Alright, I apologize in advance for the difference in audio quality. I typically record on my Cardo while I'm riding, and I don't have a fancy microphone for when I'm off the bike. But now we're just going to put it up on the rear stand. If you are using a front stand, you always want to put the rear stand on first. You can see I've got these little paddock stand accessories for my bike. So what I like to do is line up one side so that you know you're in the slot, then come around to the other just to ensure that you're lined up. Then I grab my backrest, but you can also grab, you know, a rear part of the bike just to make sure that everything's set before you press down. And I'm watching it the whole way back just to make sure nothing's going wrong. Move that little yoga mat that I was talking about. Also, when my bike is on the stand, I always leave the kickstand on, just because if something were to happen that were to come down, at least there's a hope that it's going to lean left and get caught. Otherwise, it's good to have it because, you know, maybe when you're going to set it back down off the stand, you forget to put the kickstand back down. This way it's just, you're sure. So next, I'm going to do the stable and add the fuel stabilizer. One thing you definitely want to do is, after you heat up your oil, you do want to let it cool down a little bit so that you're not burning yourself when you're changing the oil. So for the stable fuel stabilizer, you use 1 ounce for every 2.5 gallons. This is a 3.7 gallon tank, so that means we need 1.48 ounces. You can see here, if the camera's picking it up, you've got a 1/4 ounce and a 1/2 ounce measurements. And the way that you get it to fill is, you can see when I squeeze, it comes up this. If you squeeze hard enough, it makes it over into that little measuring area. So at this point, I've got 1/2 ounce. So I'm going to add my first 1/2 ounce straight to the tank, like so. I'm going to squeeze up for another 1/2 ounce. Going to add that. And then we need just short of 1/2 ounce. So I think I was a little short on my squeezes. So I actually went back up to 1/2 ounce. So I'm gonna try to leave a little bit down in the bottom. If you do get a little extra, it's not the end of the world. If you get a little short, it's not the end of the world. A little bit more. Alright, that's pretty good. So fuel stabilized. One thing I am going to do when I'm done with all of this, and it's down on its kickstand, is I'm going to rock the bike side to side a little bit. And then I'll probably take it for another very short ride, just to make sure that that fuel makes its way through the lines, and that's what we've got throughout the bike. I did lie a little bit. I put my kickstand up. I forgot that the oil drain bolt is on the same side as the kickstand. So you are going to need your kickstand up. The oil drain bolt, if I can get my camera in there, is right behind the breather tubes right here. You've also got your oil filter at the front right here, which I'll get a better shot of in a minute. I've also put my oil drain pan down below in the open position. I highly recommend you get one of these containers. They're very convenient, and as long as you have a relatively nice container, you could take it to just about any auto shop and they will recycle your oil for you for free, your old oil. So instead of having to worry about how the heck am I going to get rid of this, it's just a good way to do it. Now, the oil drain bolt, I'm measuring at 11/16. So we're just going to get in there and pop it loose. Now that it's loose, it's probably just finger tight. I'm going to make sure I've got good space underneath here. And I'm just going to twist that bolt with my fingertip until it falls off, so that I'm not getting a whole bunch of oil on myself. You can see I only got a little bit on the tip of my finger. And look at how dark that oil is coming out. Definitely needed the change. So I'm going to reposition this just so it's not hopefully burping quite as bad as it is. Maybe if I tilt a little bit. There seems to be no fixing it, and that's alright. So as this is kind of draining out, and you do want to get every little bit, I'm noticing while I'm down here that I've got a bunch of grime and stuff. So today while I'm doing this process, it's also just a good opportunity to clean up parts of the bike that we don't get to all the time. But I'm going to let this drain until we're ready for the next step, and I will come back to you. Alright, so my oil drain has slowed down to a trickle. So at this point, I'm going to kind of reposition my oil drain pan so that it's still catching all those little drops that are coming. But I'm also going to go ahead and get my oil filter off. I've got this nice oil filter wrench. It tightens in one direction and loosens in the other. I've had hit and miss luck with this thing, so we're actually going to kind of put it to the test a little bit and see if I can get it. If I can't, I've got a more traditional kind of generic oil filter wrench. And then worst case scenario, this sounds crazy, but you can always stab your oil filter with flatheads, or with a, Phillips screwdriver, and use that as your wrench to remove it. So I'm just gonna try and get this thing open enough. I always kind of forget how it works because I don't use it that often, but we just need to get it fitted on the filter. And there it is. It cracked it just loose enough. Okay, so that actually worked a lot better. Last year I resorted to my old-fashioned wrench. And now you can see we got a little oil that came straight out of the filter. We're just going to slowly remove that so we're not making a huge mess. And I'm going to set that in the same pan to drain as much oil out as I can. There we go. And we'll be back in about one eternity when this thing fully stops dripping oil. Probably part of that cut that I'm not going to show you because you guys aren't going to care is I'm going to grab just a rag and clean up the whole bottom side of all these drips. See you soon. We're about 10 minutes out from the last little clip here. You can see I'm still slowly dripping away down there. So while that goes, I'm just going to talk about what I'm using today as far as new oil and a filter. I will link below the kit that I ordered on Amazon. There are probably cheaper ways to do it, but I just like it because it does come with a genuine Kawasaki filter made for the bike. That's extremely important that you get one that's for the Vulcan S. The filter itself looks just like an oil filter. It also comes with a paper cone that has a crush washer. So that's really important too. A lot of people say you have to change it every time. I don't think you necessarily do, as long as you're inspecting your crush washer for wear and damage. Mine actually looks really good. I could probably afford to just reuse this one. The bolt itself is a darker color, but I'm inspecting my threads, making sure that it's not starting, to wear flat or cross thread or anything like that. And then it also comes with 2 bottles of full synthetic 10W40 oil for 4-stroke engine. This one's made by Kawasaki. You don't have to get one made by Kawasaki, but it does have to be 4-stroke engine oil. It does have to be 10W40, and it does have to be made for motorcycles. These are all very important things. So that's why I kind of just always go with a kit, because you're getting the right stuff. You're getting the replacement washer, a funnel that I can just throw away when I'm done. I don't have to worry about cleaning it and, worry about old oil getting into it, that kind of thing. So one more thing I'll do real quick is I poured a little fresh oil into this cap. I'm just going to wet my finger with it and get around this seal. That's important so that the seal doesn't dry out, over the winter or across your riding. And that's about it. So after that, might as well stay rolling for it. So just going around the whole seal. It doesn't have to be gobbed on there. You just want to get it wet. That looks pretty good. And then I'm going to get back under here. Make sure we're not cross-threading, so, go left and right a couple of times. And there it is. You know pretty well once you have it, because it wants to spin on there. Alright, so my gloves are a little bit oily, so I'm just going to grab a paper towel, kind of dry this thing off and wrench it down a little extra. You want this thing on there tight, but not so tight that you can't get it off next year or next oil change. I think that's pretty good. It seems to have stopped, like it's got nowhere else to turn. Keep wiping away these little drips to see how much is still dripping. You're never going to get it bone dry, but we want to get as much of that old oil out of there as possible. Alright, we've swapped over to the braking side of the bike. You can see my oil view window there is nearly empty. Again, you're never going to get the thing bone dry, but it's nearly empty. Right here is where we're going to fill the oil. I know a lot of guys complain about getting this cap off. If yours is really stuck on, you can kind of put like a towel over this and grab like pliers or a wrench or whatever to yank that thing off. But I think if you have that thing on there that tight, you're over tightening it. I leave mine snug, but I'm able to get it off with just my fingers, and guess what? It has never rattled loose one single time I've ridden. So I can assure you that unless you're doing something crazy, that thing's not just going to pop off on its own. So we'll put in our little handy dandy disposable filter, which seems a little too big for this hole. So I'm going to kind of... Well, you know what? That's a fail, but it's okay because I've got a funnel that I like to use. So I'll be right back with that. So I've got my handy dandy long neck funnel that I like to use. It is absolutely perfect for this. You're not going to spill anything. But I haven't used it since my last oil change, so I'm just going to wipe it down with a paper towel because I am not trying to put any extra dust in my engine, not trying to put any old oil in my engine. So now that that's cleaned out, we can stick it right on in there. You can see on the bottle, this is 1 quart. It says right at the bottom. This thing takes about 1.9 quarts, so you're going to use nearly both of the bottles that you just got in your kit. You want to introduce it slowly, make sure that it's not, overflowing or spilling out onto your garage floor, or in my case, my yoga mat. But just nice and easy does it. I'm also keeping an eye on my sight glass for my oil because it is rising in that window. That said, we've drained a lot out of the bottom of the engine, so clearly it's not cycling right now through the engine. So once you start this thing later on, you are going to get that sight glass dropping a little bit from where you're filling it right now. So that's the contents of 1 bottle. The other nice thing, I don't recommend obviously overfilling your engine with oil, but if something were to happen and you're like, oh man, I didn't read the bottle right, or I added too much oil, or there was still too much oil in it, or whatever, you can just drain out a little bit of the excess later on. So I finished adding nearly all of both quarts, leaving a little bit in reserve. It's nice to leave that little bit of reserve on your shelf too, because if you want to just top off your oil mid-season, you've got 0.1 or 0.2 quarts just sitting there at all times. So what it did do is it filled this sight glass all the way up past the top, which is frightening at first, but it is very, very slowly creeping back down within those 2 notches, which is where you want to be, once the engine distributes the oil. So we're going to take our funnel back out. I'm going to clean that off later on. We're going to grab our little filler plug there, close that back up, making sure not to cross thread, tighten it down by hand, but nothing crazy, and that is in place for the next time. Another thing I'm going to do off camera is just clean up the front of my oil receptacle here. I'm going to push as much towards that drain center as I can, plug it up, clean off the top, so that I'm not getting it all over the shelves in my garage and all that jazz. And it'll be ready for next time. Next, I'm going to be cleaning my chain. Oil change is done. Chain is next. Again, I like to do this before the end of the season so that next season, when I'm excited to get back on the bike, I can just ride off into the sunset. So some of the stuff I'm going to be using to clean my chain, I've got a Motul chain tool. If you don't have a chain-specific brush, get one. It's a huge time saver, and you can be sure that you're cleaning it correctly. I'm using this kind of generic high-performance chain cleaner. You don't need anything specific. In fact, you can even just use kerosene, but this is the one made by Honda. And then I'm using the Motul chain lube, which is really kind of a wax. But we'll get into this. So one thing that a lot of people do that I hate to see is they'll clean their chain while the bike is running. This is a horrible idea. If you get your fingers caught in between the sprocket and the chain, or up top or whatever, it's a recipe for disaster. Really, having the bike on to clean your chain does not save that much time. All we need to do, instead of having the bike on, is rotate the back wheel. If you can't do this with your hand and rotate the back wheel, you probably shouldn't be riding a bike to begin with. So we're going to grab our chain cleaner. We're going to use this pretty liberally. So I'm going to spray at the top of the chain while I'm turning. I'm just going to keep going. You'll eventually see it starting to drip off, which I'm just starting to see. and it drips off dirty. So what we're doing essentially is melting all that old chain wax, chain lube off. And all the little rings that hold this thing together are getting cleaned off as well. Am I getting on my tire? Absolutely. But it's chain cleaner. It's gonna evaporate off pretty shortly. So next, now that that's pretty saturated, I'm gonna grab my brush. I'm gonna hold down and I'm just gonna rotate the wheel. I do this for a couple revolutions of the chain. You can do a little back and forth motion if you want, but all the while I'm pulling down on the chain. It's also a good idea while you're doing this just to get an idea of your chain slack. So this is a pretty reasonable amount of chain slack. It's not too tight, it's not too loose. So I can rest assured that I don't have to do that anytime soon. So now that we've gone around a couple of times, I'm gonna do the opposite and I'm gonna lift up on the chain and do the same thing. A couple revolutions, give it a little back and forth. It's also good while we're in here to inspect all your links, try and find your master link, make sure nothing's kinked up. So now that I've done the bottom, I'm actually going to push in a little bit and get the front of the chain. This isn't all that necessary, but I like to do it. And I do the same thing with the backside, so now I'm pulling towards myself. And then just one more time for good measure, I'm gonna get the top and the bottom of the chain. You can see even on my gloves how much nasty crap is coming off. So now that that's done, I'm gonna spray it again with the chain cleaner, just very liberally, just trying to get as much gunk that we just loosened up to naturally fall off of there. It's pretty good. I'm also coming in to look at the sprocket. My sprocket's pretty dirty, but there's no cracks. The teeth look good, so I don't have to worry too much. But you can use the same chain cleaner on the sprocket. So we're gonna do that. Just get it nice and coated. I'm gonna come in with a paper towel and dry off the chain a little bit. You can see just how black, how crappy that stuff is. It's coming out. That's all that road dirt and dust and mud, everything. So I'm just drying it up a little bit. I'm gonna do the same with my sprocket. Doesn't have to be perfect, just better. I know a lot of people will kind of sit here and nitpick over their sprocket or over their chain, whatever. These are parts that eventually need to be replaced. Your bike gets dirty, big whoop. I'm not going to sit here and polish this thing until it's a mirror finish. I think that's kind of foolish. But we're just going to get as much of that excess kerosene or chain cleaner off as we can. And I'm going to let it air dry a little bit before I wax it. And now that my chain's not dripping wet, I'm going to lube it. It's not necessarily dry to the touch, but it's way drier than it was while I was cleaning it. You can see I also put this paper towel over the top. I'm gonna rip another section off. I just like to wrap these up. Call me crazy, but you know, chain wax gets everywhere and it's kind of annoying to clean off. So I like to get it just tucked into a position where I can just kind of leave it. It doesn't have to be perfect or anything, but you know, I can still rotate it. So this just keeps those crossbars from getting a bunch of wax on them. My can of chain lube or wax is getting a little empty, but we're gonna aim for the tops of all these links. We're gonna steady spray and turn. Steady spray and turn. Steady spray and turn. this is all you need. Sometimes I see people getting the front of their chain or the sides of their chain or whatever. You really just need it on top in a good liberal amount, and it'll distribute itself as it's going around your sprocket. So I think that's about all the chain lube I need. Probably even a little extra, but that's okay. And I'm just going to keep on rotating it to get it kind of worked in. Just keep working it in. And that's going to dry on there pretty sticky and pretty lubricated. And I saved all these from getting all sticky because I found out the hard way that if they do, then they pick up every little bit of dirt. Last year when I winterized my bike, I also cleaned it, which if you're going to clean your bike as part of your winterization process, do it before you do your chain. Let your bike dry fully and then do the chain. The reason that I decided not to do that this year is because your bike just picks up dust in your garage or wherever you're storing it all winter long. So I know that next season at the beginning, probably first week, I'm going to clean the bike anyway, so why bother now? It's worth noting, this is also a good time, at the beginning of the off season to check all your other fluids. So I know that I did my coolant myself at the beginning of this season. I did all my other fluids. I did my brake fluids, front and back. I did everything. So I know that I'm good. But it's a good time to check because why not do all of this maintenance during the winter when you can't ride your bike anyway? You might as well get everything done. And quite frankly, it allows you to play with your bike, which is what we all want to do anyway during a season that you can't really safely be riding around. Off camera, I took out my yoga mat, cleaned that off a little bit, rolled it back up for next time. Like I said, I work at a gym, so I have the luxury of having all of these yoga mats just ready. So if anyone lives near Chicagoland and they really need a work surface, let me know because I can hook you up. But we're going to take the bike back down off the stand. Most important part to doing this is remembering to put your kickstand back down. And then remember, the bike is going to set down vertical, but we want it to lean left. So I'm going to grab my cage back here. And as I lift, I'm going to just very slightly pull it towards the left-hand side to make sure that that's the direction it falls. And we're good. Stand is off.
So I've left my chain to dry a little bit. My oil had time to kind of move around. Now remember, I added that stable to the tank, so I'm going to kind of lean my bike vigorously side to side. Let it get a little bit, mixed up in there. Because ultimately, we want that stable inside of our lines too. We don't just want it in the tank. So a nice even mix in the tank. We can go back and forth a little, hit the brakes. Just kind of shake up your tank as much as you can. And then we're going to go for another short little ride. That's going to accomplish two things. It's going to get the chain lubrication nice and even and distribute it around the chain. And it's also going to burn up a little bit of this gas so that what we have in the lines has the stable in it. It's honestly a lovely day to be riding around if you don't mind a little bit of cold. It's about 50 degrees right now, and I'm pretty comfortable, with jeans and kind of a thicker hoodie jacket and my helmet and gloves. But, we're not doing anything too fast. We're not doing anything too crazy. So I didn't put on my, my motorcycle specific pants or jacket. We're pretty much going to stay in the neighborhood here. Just kind of cruise around, eat up a little bit of that gasoline. If you're afraid that you used too much of the gas, trying to get it incorporated into the system, don't worry. You can just top it off at a gas station, and it's going to mix with the stable that's already in your tank. You're not going to have to go back and add more stable or anything like that. If it's off just a little bit, it's not that big of a deal. But one of the reasons you want to keep the gas as full as possible is so that you don't get any rust in your tank that would make its way inside of your engine. It's about 1 o'clock right now, so we got some lunchtime traffic in this neighborhood. It's usually a pretty sleepy little neighborhood. Nice to be, you know, just rolling around. When I first started riding, this was my practice grounds. So I know these neighborhoods like the back of my hand. I think I rode up and down every single street a couple of times, if not more. So while I'm riding around, I might as well talk about some of my winter plans for the bike. I guess I could talk about my personal ones too. I am planning to go to Florida in December. But, and who knows, I might rent a bike down there. Maybe you'll get a vacation video. Who knows, we'll see. But for the bike, sitting on my shelf, I still have a high flow air filter. I'd really like to install that. That's kind of a maybe at the moment. The reason it's a maybe is because I'm already getting back crackles and stuff because of the Two Brothers, or I'm sorry, not Two Brothers, CS Racing exhaust that I fitted. And if I do a high flow air filter, it's going to make that worse. A little bit of back crackling is not bad for your engine, but if you're getting big loud back crackles or back fires, then it could be seriously damaging your engine. And the way that you fix that is either by flashing your ECU or taking it to a dyno and dyno tuning your ECU. I'd prefer the dyno, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that in the summer. It might be early springtime that I get it to a dyno. The other thing, I don't like seeing people do this, but a lot of people do it as a cheap alternative, is the booster plugs. My bike here is not compatible with the booster plugs, so that's not something I'm even considering. But if yours is compatible, I would highly recommend that you look into how the booster plug works, the pros and cons of it, and then make your own personal informed decision on if you want to do a booster plug. If I had a bike that were capable of it, personally, I would not do it. Reason being, you're not actually tuning your bike. You're tricking your ECU, and you're tricking, the brain of your bike into thinking that it's running at a different temperature than it actually is. So in doing that, you get a different fuel-air, mix ratio. And they say it smooths out a lot of the jerkiness in the first gear, and it does a lot of things, and I'm sure it makes your bike feel better. But my question is, what happens if it is really hot and you're already tricking it? Or what happens if it's really cold and you're already tricking it? I think, it's better not to trick the bike, and it's better to essentially teach the bike to be the way that it needs to be for the conditions. Not, manipulating, I don't know. Again, make your own informed decision. I'm not your parent. You do what you want to do with your bike. But I would not do the booster plug on my own. Another thing I plan to do, you may have seen in this little video that I'm filming here, I've replaced the horn on my bike to be a dual car horn. I think it's a safety feature. It's much louder. It's much deeper. But in doing so, I had to put in a relay. So if you don't know what a relay is, it's basically an electronic switch. But I had to put in a relay, and it's just kind of dangling beneath the bike. It's not really hidden or in a good spot. It's the big orange box if you look back in the video when I'm underneath the bike. But So at some point over the winter, I plan to take that back apart and rewire it so that I can have it tucked a little more. Right now I basically just can't tuck it anywhere based on how the wires are sitting. But yeah, so that's kind of the reason for that. As soon as there's like no traffic around, I'll honk the horn so that you guys can hear it. I'll also link that down in the description of this video, but the horn I used is a Pittsburgh horn from Harbor Freight. It was really cheap, like 20 bucks maybe. And then I think I bought the relay kit on Amazon, and that was relatively easy to install too. You know, I'm not like big into electrical. I don't know everything about it. And even for me, you know, I was able to figure it out. I think the Pittsburgh horn did come with a relay, but it was obviously like a relay for a car. And while I'm sure you could get it to work, I wasn't able to get it to work. So I just ended up swapping out for an Amazon relay. But alright, there's no cars in front, no cars behind. So here's the horn. I'll pull in my clutch so it's quieter. Again, it just sounds a lot better. It's a lot louder. Yeah, I don't know. I'm very happy with that. I do think it's one of the cheaper safety mods you can make to your bike. You know, a lot of people in their cars are rocking loud music, or one of my least favorites to see is people with headphones while they're driving. Especially the big over-the-ear ones. Like, I don't know how you just even feel safe driving a car like that. But hey, you know, I guess it's my life too, because I'm on the road, but it's your choice, so whatever. But yeah, you want a horn that people can hear. Anyone that say loud pipes save lives, not really. I mean, yeah, maybe people are more likely to hear you, but you know, if loud pipes saved lives, I've heard someone else say this. I don't know if it was Dan the fireman or who said it, but loud pipes don't save lives. If they did, then every single Gold Wing driver would be dead. Those are like the quietest bikes, and they're huge and heavy and whatever, but they have some of the most proficient riders out there. So I fully think skills save lives. Sure, a horn or your exhaust can help you be heard, but it's not going to save your life. Your skills, maneuverability, all that is going to save your life.
Just a few more things left for winterizing the bike. So one thing I forgot to mention as we were changing the oil is that just because of how, you know, the amount of time that I spent warming the bike up and then letting it cool before I changed the oil was just warm to the touch with those gloves on. So that's actually perfect. The other thing here is you can see I put it back on the paddock stand in the back. I put my little foam pad that I like to use on the right underneath the front tire. There are just two things I have left for my winterization process. And the first is a battery tender. Get yourself a good battery tender and a lead that stays plugged into your battery that you can just access from the side of your bike. Now I can leave this thing pretty much all winter. I might start it up once or twice in slightly warmer weather just to get fluids moving. But now that the battery is taken care of, that's a huge peace of mind. And then the last thing, it's a piece of motorcycle maintenance, but it's indirect. The piece of maintenance I'm talking about is this, the garage. Don't be a slob like me. I think most, tool-friendly people let things go. You might be working on a project and you're just dog-tired at the end of it and you just slap everything down. But then it's 10 times harder to find anything when you need it. So I'm going to spend some time in here today cleaning up my tools, organizing things, and I'll show you a shot once that's done. And that'll about wrap it up. One thing that you can do that's optional, I've seen people do, is put some paper towel or, you could even use steel wool in your exhaust pipe It just stops mice from getting in there. The paper towel might not stop them, but it at least gives you an idea that they were in there chewing things up. But I don't really see many mice, so I think I'm clear there. But hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Like I said, I'm going to do some cleanup. I'll take a shot of that once I'm done. And thank you for joining me. And just like that, we are all cleaned up. Still a little chaotic, but it's a garage after all. Just kind of reorganize some of the shelving. I highly recommend, if you have a toolbox like this, getting a little label maker and labeling so that, you know, all your pliers are together, all your wrenches are together, box wrenches, stuff like that. But it has been a fantastic riding season. I hope you guys join me next season. This has been the Mike on Bike, and we'll see you soon.